Around 700 BC, a Spartan boy of about 12 years old crept into a kitchen and stole a small fox. He hid it under his cloak. Then he walked back to his training squad, sat down in front of his commanding officer, and pretended nothing had happened. The fox, terrified and trapped inside his cloak, began to bite, then claw, then tear at the skin of his stomach. The boy did not move. He did not flinch. He did not cry out. He sat there in silence while the animal slowly ripped open his belly. He died on the spot. He died rather than admit he had stolen the fox, because in Sparta, the worst possible thing a boy could do was get caught. This is the story of the Agoge, the Spartan training system that didn't punish theft, it punished failure. The story of the boy and the fox is told by Plutarch in his Life of Lycurgus, written hundreds of years after the events, but based on older Spartan traditions. Modern historians debate whether the fox story is literally true or a moral tale designed to teach a lesson, but the system that produced it was very real. Ancient writers like Plutarch, Xenophon, and Aristotle all describe the Agoge in detail, and what they describe is unlike any educational system ever invented in human history. In Sparta, the moment a boy turned 7, he stopped being his parents' child. The state took him. He was removed from his home, placed into a barrack-style group called an Agile, and put under the command of older boys and a state-appointed overseer called a paidomomos, which literally means boy herder. From that point until the age of 29, his entire life belonged to Sparta. The Agoge was divided into 3 rough stages: the paides, aged 7 to 17, the paidiskoi, aged 18 to 19, and the hibontes, the young men, aged 20 to 29. Every age group lived under brutal physical conditions designed to test, harden, and break the soft parts of a person. The boys slept on beds of reeds they had to pull by hand from the banks of the Eurotas River. They were given 1 cloak per year starting at age 12, and that was their entire wardrobe, regardless of season. They walked barefoot year-round, supposedly to toughen their feet. They were beaten for mistakes, mocked for weakness, and tested constantly in mock battles against each other. And here's the part that completely flipped Greek and Roman observers when they first wrote about it. The boys were deliberately starved. According to Plutarch, the rations given to the Agoge boys were intentionally too small. The state didn't want them well-fed. The state wanted them hungry. Plutarch's exact words in The Customs of the Spartans are that the dinner allowed them is meager, so through coping with want by their own initiative, they may be compelled to be daring and unscrupulous. Translation: they were forced to steal. The system was designed to make stealing a survival requirement. A boy who refused to steal would simply starve. So every boy in the Agoge became a thief, not as a crime, as an act of education. They stole from gardens, they stole from kitchens, they stole, according to Plutarch, by creeping right slyly and cautiously into the public messes of the men. They worked alone or in pairs. They studied their targets, watched the routines of cooks and adults, and timed their raids carefully. The skill they developed was a brutal kind of stealth and resourcefulness, the same skills that would later make Spartan soldiers terrifying on long campaigns, where forage and theft from enemy territory were essential to survival. But here is where the system becomes psychologically extreme. If a boy got caught stealing, he wasn't punished for stealing, he was punished for the failure of being seen. The Roman historian Xenophon, who actually visited Sparta and observed the system directly, recorded that boys who were caught were beaten. Plutarch goes further. He writes that the punishment was many lashes of the whip, along with the loss of any food. The lesson was savage in its clarity. Stealing was good. Being caught stealing was the only crime. A successful thief was admired. A clumsy one was flogged. The the state was teaching the boys that the only sin was getting noticed. This is what produced the story of the boy and the fox, a boy who could let his own intestines be torn open by a wild animal rather than admit failure. Plutarch tells the story as proof of how completely the lesson had been absorbed. The boys had internalized the rule so deeply that they would die before admitting they had been caught. And the lesson worked. Spartan soldiers, the products of the Agoge, were widely considered the most ruthlessly disciplined infantry of the ancient world. They could endure extreme hunger, extreme cold, and extreme physical pain without breaking ranks. On long marches across enemy territory, Spartan units could sustain themselves with minimal supplies, raiding farms and stealing food without being detected. The exact claim that they could go 4 or 5 days without food and still fight effectively is a modern embellishment, but the underlying truth is sound. These were men trained from age 7 to function on near-starvation rations. The Agoge had taught them at a cellular level that hunger was not an emergency, it was just Tuesday. But it came with a horrific price. The system wasn't just about food and stealth. The Agoge also included a ritual at the temple of Artemis Orthia, where boys were flogged in public displays of endurance. According to Plutarch, who actually witnessed the ceremony in his own time, some boys were beaten so badly that they died on the altar. Plutarch describes the scene with stunned horror, writing that he had personally seen Spartan youths expiring under the lash at the altar of Artemis Orthia. The ritual was supposed to demonstrate the absolute toughness of Spartan training. It demonstrated something darker as well, a culture so committed to discipline that it would kill its own children rather than admit weakness. And then there was the Crypteia, the secret service. Once a boy reached around 18 or 19, the best Agoge graduates were inducted into a program where they were sent into the countryside armed with a short blade. Their target was the Helot population, the enslaved serfs who outnumbered Spartans by perhaps 7 to 1 and grew Sparta's food. The young men were instructed to hide during the day, move at night, and kill any Helot who looked too strong, too capable, or too dangerous. The historian Paul Cartledge has called the Crypteia a form of state-sanctioned terrorism. Every autumn, the 5 Spartan ephors formally declared war on the Helots, making the killings administratively legal. What does all of this add up to? A system that took a 7-year-old boy, starved him until he had to steal, beat him if he got caught, made him sleep on reeds, gave him 1 cloak a year, taught him to murder enslaved farmers in the dark, and produced one of the most feared armies in human history. The Agoge was brutal, it was effective, and ancient writers who saw it firsthand were both horrified and fascinated by what it produced. Modern historians still debate how much of Plutarch's writing is literal truth and how much is moralized legend. The fox story, the deaths at the altar, the exact numbers of Helots killed in the Crypteia. Some details are likely exaggerated, but the core fact is well attested. Sparta produced its soldiers by deliberately starving its children and teaching them that the only crime was failure. So tell me below, if your parents handed you over to the state at age 7 and you knew that for the next 2 decades you would be beaten for any mistake, starved on purpose, and trained to steal in silence, would you have survived the Agoge, or would you have broken in the first week? Drop your answer in the comments, and if you want more stories about the brutal systems that built the ancient world, subscribe to Alternate Past. There's more discipline waiting.